Bitcoin had a very sharp movement to lower zones as the beginning of the week. Now let's see what's going on with it this week or even by the end of this year. Good morning, traders. Welcome back to the channel, and we are back with Bitcoin, this time on slightly bigger time frames, as we are going to look for a much long-term game plan here. Now, straight to the facts. Now, looking at this monthly time frame here, what's getting our attention is basically the RSI, where we see that last time we had been in overbought zone. Before going to the next overbought zone, meaning the next bullish movement, we had slight movement to the upper zones, just the pre-halving time, as you can see, basically the same period as we are currently right now as well. And we had a nice movement to the lower zones, which was basically 26% of market price movement on the RSI side and 70% of market price movement on the Bitcoin as well. After we had this rally to the upper side, meaning making new all-time highs and also going in massive overbought zone with the RSI, we went for a correction movement, of course, which was logical, same as we did here as well. And now we are seeing similar movement on the RSI side and also on the market price movement side as well. Now, with that being said, there is still a chance of seeing the similar movement on the RSI side to the lower zones before another rally after we pass this April data of 2024, when initially the halving is supposed to happen. Now, going on a smaller time frame, meaning on a weekly time frame, finally, after basically 8 weeks of straight moves to the upper zones, resulting in a massive overbought zone, of course, we are finally seeing some kind of movement to the lower zones where price had a very nice sharp movement, liquidating almost all the positions that we had, not we, but traders had on the markets. And now we want to see a price movement to the lower zones and even further to those EMA zones. But before we are going to reach those EMA zones, we want to see, of course, one last touch to this 45k, basically potentially even moving slightly to this 48k zone, which is basically this resistance line here. So this liquidation zone. So we might see some kind of movement to the upper sides, of course, but the major movement is still going to be to the lower zones. Now, also what we want to do is get your attention to this chart here, which is of course the Binance's liquidation heat map of the Bitcoin. Now, a few days ago, we shared, of course, that there are plenty of liquidated positions or to be liquidated positions, as there was almost none to some single millions of dollars positions or stop losses on the upper side of this chart. Now, going on a monthly time frame on here, we are going to see that price still has some kind of liquidity on the upper side, yet most of the liquidity is still sitting here on the lower side, of course. Now, considering the fact that with this massive dump, liquidating almost all the positions we had on the Bitcoin, and now showing some kind of strength here, we want to see basically a movement of going now on a daily time frame, of course, so to show you a better view. But the game plan is going to be something like this. We want to see some kind of movement, like going one more time to the lower zones here, potentially liquidating more positions, and of course people will return heavily in bearish, but we want to see one last retest after reaching this zone to the upper zones here. And once we are going to reach this zone, this is the zone where we are going to look for a potential further dump, potentially of course the major dump that we have been talking about, which is like basically the movement to these lower zones. Of course, the middle line of Bollinger Bands, which is our main priority as of now. And now let's go and see from a little bit different perspective on the Bitcoin. And here we have a much more detailed plan, or basically plan A and plan B. So on the bigger time frame, we have a plan of reaching at least this 26k zone before the halving, potentially even to the lower zones. So basically this box here is going to be the major buy zone for the majority of traders, of course. Now, we talked previously about the smaller time frame, not the smaller time frame, but the smaller game plan, which we had like movement to the lower side, then movement to the upper side, and then this big game plan has to come to play. Now, of course, there are chances that we will see like further push or some kind of like game plan like this, but personally, we don't see any kind of further push to happen from here. We are completely outside in the overbought zones, as you can see, not only on the RSI side, but you can see also, let's say, we have here major FVG gap. Basically, we have here as well, and those zones are filled with fair value gap zones which yet have to be filled, because if we are going to push further, we're going just to blow this bubble that we are making right now, and at one moment it's just going to explode completely. So basically this is the game plan that we are having right now on the Bitcoin. Pretty simple as of now. The major movement has to happen to the lower zones, correcting the Bitcoin, of course, correcting all the indicators as well, and leaving people's greed behind and potentially making markets back to the fear positions. So, this is it for today. We hope you liked this video, and as always, stay humble and trade safe. See you in the next session.